Hi YouTubers, my name is Evan Tate and I play saxophone among other things, and today I like to talk about long tones. Now recently I watched a video with the title "The Only Long Tone Exercise You'll Ever Need," so of course I was very interested to find out what this was. So I listened to this. This exercise was done. A saxophonist, a very good one, I have to say. First of all, also a great tone and great technique. And she was playing an exercise which she gave a name called the hinge, and which also somebody commented that it was also called the Remington. Have no idea where these names come from, but in any case, and even as she described what the exercise was, I couldn't understand why it was called the hinge, but doesn't matter. She started on the main premise was she would start on the middle D on the saxophone, and the main thing was to play the exercise slow, which is correct, to play in one long breath connecting the notes, which is also correct, and plus the whole time she would only breathe through the nose, which is, I think, is also okay. It doesn't have to be always this way, but it's also good. But she would keep her mouth closed the whole time, would not open up. So she would play a D for 4 beats very slowly at 60 beats per minute, play C sharp again for 4 beats, and then again D for 4 beats, and then 4 beats rest. The whole time connecting the notes, and even during the 4 beats rest, she did not open her mouth. She would only breathe through the nose, use those 4 beats as time to inhale again, and then continue your exercises playing D to C to D, then D to B to D, D to B flat and D, and etc. until she reached low D. Low D. So make an octave jump from D, middle D to low D, back to high D, middle D. Then she continued on the exercise chromatically upward. D to E flat to D, D to E to D, D to F to D, and so and continuing on until she reached high D, and then back to the D. Now, what also had happened in this exercise as she was performing it, exactly that happened what I expected to, was that by the time she was reaching the low D, she was barely able to get the tone out. It was first fighting. She had to fight to get the tone out, and I could tell you why afterwards. And by the time she finished the exercise playing up to high D, the high D was out of tune. It was just very flat. It wasn't happening. And my question to her was, well, why did she ignore all the tones below the low D and above the high D? That I didn't understand. But in any case, the problem with playing such a strenuous exercise and not opening your mouth the whole time, you're putting a lot of pressure on your embouchure, while performing this exercise. Now, there is something to be said about having a firm embouchure, but not a tight one. We play saxophone. You need a firm embouchure, but not a tight one. A tight one, you need. If you play clarinet, you need a tight one. But if you're going to play saxophone, you need an embouchure that's a lot looser than that. And performing an exercise like this is not very conducive for having a good embouchure for the saxophone like that. Now, you can improve, sure, you'll feel improvement, things like that, but like I said, you're tiring out your embouchure by performing this way. And like I said, and plus putting that kind of stress on your embouchure by playing the low notes, you're giving the low notes a battle to come out. Now, I'm not saying, mind you, that you should even loosen the jaw for the low notes. That's actually a mistake. A lot of saxophonists do that. They've learned it from someone else. They've learned it through trial and error. Maybe even their teacher taught it to them, but it's actually, I'll explain in another video about embouchure why that's not a solution. Why that's actually will harm your saxophone playing rather than improve it. And the same thing with the high notes. there is this belief that, pinching harder or somehow manipulating in the throat to get the high notes out. I'm not talking about altissimo. I'm talking about just a regular range in the instrument. There's this belief that somehow helps. No, it doesn't. In fact, it does more damage to your intonation and other things like that. But again, that's something for another video. Let's concentrate on long tones. The long tones exercise I use is one I originally modified from an exercise presented in Top Tones for Saxophone by Sigurd Rascher. And I practiced it the way it is presented in the book for many years until I decided to change the exercise, because I thought it's a good exercise for sure, but I thought it was quite, in other ways, inefficient. Not in a way, it's a better way to do it. I thought so. And I changed this exercise. I started practicing it differently, and I've also taught this exercise also differently to my students, and I've been able to get very good results, not only with myself, but of course with my students as well. And so that's why I stay by my modified version of this exercise. Now, what this exercise does is I just want to backtrack. When I'm practicing, I like to use my practice time as best as I can. That's why I'm looking for the most economical ways to practice many things I can. When we're performing as musicians, we are doing many things simultaneously. We have to produce a good tone. We have to have good intonation. We have to interpret the music quite well. And a bunch of other things. We're doing all these things. We have to hear well in order to perform the music well. I mean, if you can only perform intonation as well as you can hear yourself. If you're not very good at solfège or something like that, or ear training at some point, then it's not going to be corrected all of a sudden just because you're playing saxophone. You just press the buttons and it's there. No. Saxophone, you could actually manipulate very much, and if your intonation itself is not very good from listening, then it's going to be that much more difficult while performing. So, but in any case, the exercise I use is first one it's called octaves and fourths. And another one, octaves and fifths. And the third, long tones in chromatic. I provided a link below this video where you could download these exercises. I'd like everyone to try it out. I'll perform it. If you're not used to performing or practicing an exercise like this, I would not suggest practicing the whole page at once. I would only practice each quarter for like a week or so, and then add on the next quarter the week after, and the next quarter and the next quarter. On top of that, I would not recommend practicing octaves and fourths and then right after practice octaves and fifths. I'd say concentrate only on octaves and fourths for a couple of weeks, or how long you feel comfortable playing that exercise, and then switch over to octaves and fifths and practice only that. And then later, edit whatever the need. Then you could practice whatever you want. And then the third exercise is the chromatic, but then that is different than the other two because there's another purpose for that exercise. Now the main thing is here with these octaves and fourths. What I'm doing is I'm not only practicing and improving my embouchure, I'm also working on ear training at the same time. I'm fine-tuning my ears to hear octaves and fourths, perfect fourths. I'm also fine-tuning my ears to hear octaves and perfect fifths. Why do I want to do that? Well, in Western music, of all the intervals that we have, the octave, the perfect fourth, and the perfect fifth are the only ones that are called perfect, outside of the perfect unison. But you can't perform a unison. You can't play two tones at once. So, not on a single note instrument. So, I'm just talking about the perfect octave, the perfect fourth, the perfect fifth. Every other interval is called minor, major, diminished, or augmented. For perfect fourths, fifths, and octaves, you have augmented versions, you have diminished versions, but you don't have major or minor versions of those. So they're the only intervals that are called perfect. So that for me, that means that all other intervals are based on these three. Now one can argue about this, one can philosophize about this, but this is the way I decided to interpret this. I'd like to hear your comments on how you see this. What do you think about it? And please download these exercises, subscribe, press the alert button so for my next videos, and try it out and tell me what you think. And even if you don't like it, please let me know that too. I'm very open. I want to hear what you have to say. So in any case, that's my 2 bits on long tones. The next video I'd like to have coming up will discuss more about embouchure. Thanks a lot. This is Evan Tate signing out.